Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, now last few days I've been doing a number of these sit in the chair and stare at the camera and tell you what's going on in my life kind of videos. And that's just because that's sort of been what's been going on in my life. And you know, that's sort of what this vlog is about, is kind of talking about those things. But I know that can be a little visually boring after a while, so I decided that, well, today needed to be another one of those, just kind of updating you what's going on. I decided maybe instead to try and come up with a little bit something more visually interesting to look at. So while I am going to talk to you a little bit today, I decided to go down to the Carleen Bright Arboretum and just kind of give you some interesting stuff to look at. So we're just going to kind of wander around the trails here, and I'm kind of going to update you on what's going on in my world. Now, you'll no doubt remember that we were here a few months ago when it was out in the hundreds and it was really hot out here. So this is definitely a nicer day to do it. And because it's a weekday and kind of stormy and all that, you know, this is maybe just a good time to do it, because I literally got the whole place to myself. There's not another car in the parking lot. I don't think there's anyone else here. So I got the place to my own, and I can just kind of walk around and share what's going on here. It's definitely a lot nicer to be out here today than it was last time I was here. So the first thing I have really to talk about is a little bad news. That job I applied for a couple days ago, yeah, I didn't get that. But, you know, it's not entirely unexpected. You know, the truth is they had 20 or 30 people interviewing for 2 or 3 jobs. The odds were maybe I wasn't going to get this one. I don't know exactly what happened, because they don't ever call you and say, yeah, this is why, you know, we didn't go with you. But, you know, it could be a bunch of things. They may have decided to go with people who are younger. I don't know that that's the case, you know. But there were some young people and there were some older people in that group, and without knowing who they did and didn't elect to go forward with, it's hard to speculate entirely. But it's also possible maybe that, you know, they, as I've mentioned in earlier vlogs, that there was a possibility maybe they look at my resume and think I'm overqualified, and are worried that I might just, you know, be taking the job just to, you know, get a little bit of income while I look for something better. And I did mention that I was going to try and say something to them to be preemptive on that issue. It didn't feel right doing that in this interview, just because, you know, it was a group interview, and, you know, I figured if I got to the point where I went in for another one, that I would mention that then. But looks like I didn't get it this time, so we'll just move on. I got to keep plugging forward. This will happen at some point, you know. I just gotta keep focusing on getting one, and at some point it'll happen. Now, second thing that I want to talk to you a little bit about, as I mentioned a little earlier, it's kind of cold and windy out here today, and they predict that we got a nice little storm coming in tonight and tomorrow. And I actually got something in the mail from the landlord today that kind of suggests that they're giving us suggestions on how to deal with this. And I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because I think maybe there's something I can learn from you guys. You know, the note, you know, said that, you know, be prepared for this. You know, they gave you an emergency number to contact if you needed to talk to somebody to, you know, deal with some sort of a problem. And then they also made a recommendation, because one of the things that's supposed to happen this time is that the weather is supposed to get really cold. We're actually supposed to go below freezing on Wednesday night. Now, that's happened once or twice while I've been here, and maybe it's just the fact that the old landlord just didn't really care enough to inform anyone of that. But the management gave us a couple suggestions to consider in order to deal with this and to avoid potential problems. A couple of them are real obvious to me, because I've heard them before. You know, suggestions like, you know, keep the water dripping a little bit so that it doesn't freeze in the pipe and cause problems, and obvious things like maybe, keep the thermostat set to a certain level so it doesn't get too cold in the apartment. But they mentioned something else that I've never heard of. And I was originally thinking I'm going to go talk to the landlord and ask him for that just so I could learn. And I said, you know what? I don't need to do that. I got people that watch me all over the world and people who watch me in all sorts of climates. And I bet you somebody here would be able to answer this question. Why is it that one of their suggestions is to keep the cabinets in the kitchen open? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I'm sure there's a good reason for it, and it's probably something that everybody who lives in cold climates knows, but I don't, and I don't. So, share that with me in the comments if you know the answer to that question. You'll be kind of helping me understand this and kind of understand my world a little bit better. When I was down here a few months ago, this was all dried up, and there was just occasional little pools of water, so it's cool to see this is running a little bit right now. You may recall that a few days ago I did a video where I wandered the trails in Woodway Park, and this may seem very familiar to that because the truth is I'm maybe like a mile from there. So if I kept heading down this trail, it's very possible I would actually end up at Woodway Park, because that is the direction right there where Woodway Park is. Lake Waco is out there, but now we seem to be crawling into somebody's backyard here, so maybe I'm not going to go into this area here. Looks like this is just kind of a common area though. All the yards seem to be separated. But check out this deck in this tree. This is pretty cool. Oh, and they seem to have some sort of a zip line kind of thing too. Must be kind of fun. Yeah, that's the zip line right there. That's where you start it. Alright, so I've climbed to the top of this thing. I think this must just be like a play yard, kind of a common park area or something like that for the people who live in this area. Like I said, it appears to be outside of anyone's specific yards. I don't think I'm necessarily trespassing, but kind of a cool place up here. Be fun if you were a kid, right? Alright, so the final thing I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about was that I finally got the geeks from the Geek Squad to come and visit me today, and they did get my computer problem resolved. This one was strange. It even was confusing the person that came out to visit. In fact, she ended up having to at one point call her boss and seek advice. Now, what she ultimately ended up doing is that she literally disconnected everything from the main board. I had done that a little bit too. I had disconnected the cable that goes from the power supply to the main board. I had disconnected a couple of the device cables. There's some power cables that go to different places. I had disconnected that, but she went even a few steps further. She disconnected the hard drive and the power to the hard drive from the main board, and even removed the CPU and reseated it into place. Now, when she initially rebooted after that, the computer came right back up, and it booted normally, and everything seemed to be fine. And I said, "Oh, that's good news. It's doing something." Well, she then, after she got the computer completely reboot, she restarted it again, and it didn't reboot. And she tried a couple more times and it wouldn't reboot. And then she made the decision, since the video board had been added recently, to remove the video board and reset the BIOS. Now, what the BIOS is, that's just, I told you before, that's just a little tiny bit of memory that lives on the computer that is read by the computer before the computer boots up, just instructing the computer about what the devices are, the hard drive, the memory, all the stuff that you need to know to boot the computer up. And by pulling the battery out, she ended up resetting that, which is a good thing, which went it back to, which just kind of zeroed it all out and went back to its default program. And Then she removed the video board and reboot the computer. It came right up. She got it all the way booted up. She restarted it. It boot again. She restarted it a third time. It reboot again. So, okay, we maybe seem to have the problem. She's saying, well, it looks like maybe the video board is defective. And I said, yeah, I know, but there's that one time you booted up where it did work. How can that be? And even she didn't really have a good answer for that. So after running that cycle about 3 times, she put the video board back in and it boot up again. It's like, see, it can't be the video board if it's booting up with the video board in there. But then she restarted it again and it didn't reboot. So I don't know if it's a compatibility issue with that video board and the computer, or if the video board is defective. But apparently if you remove it from the computer and plug it back in and turn the computer on the first time, it'll work. But if you restart the computer with the board already in there, it doesn't work. And we did that repeatedly, and it worked, the first time and no times after that. So I've kind of made the decision at this point that I'm just going to live without the video board. The video board wasn't really that huge of a part of this anyway, because the main priority, as you remember when I started working on this, was just to improve the memory. And that issue was just because, the computer was too slow and took too long to process stuff. And, that was really starting to be an issue when I was doing video editing. So when I went in to get some assistance dealing with that memory issue, the guy I talked to suggested also updating the video board, and I did that just based on his recommendation. But I've decided, it's maybe not worth the trouble, because I did notice when I did put the new memory in it, there was a noticeable improvement in performance, and whatever issues I was running into seemed to be less of an issue now that I've got the more memory in there. And I don't think I've ever really seen that much of an issue where I think, well, maybe a faster video processor card or one with more memory in it will help that much. Now, there is one thing that I've noticed in the past when I'm doing certain kinds of videos. Sometimes when I'm doing the cooking videos or something, I will be, if there's something that's going on that takes a lot of time, I'm spending like a bunch of time, cutting up some ingredients, rather than showing you 10 minutes of me cutting up the ingredients. What I'll do is I'll film the whole thing and then run it in fast motion so that you can see it happen, but not have to sit and watch 10 minutes of it happening, which is even mind-numbingly tedious for me. So I've noticed that when I try and play that back on the computer when I'm doing the edit, when I haven't actually rendered out the video, that the computer seems to have trouble keeping up with that. And that kind of makes sense if you're taking 10 seconds of high definition video and attempting to compress it into 1 second, at real time, and then render a new image based on that. That may be putting more demands on the processor than the processor can handle. However, that might be also something that will be resolved with the additional memory. So I don't know. Like I said, it's never really been that big of a deal, because it only becomes a problem when I'm attempting to play the video before I've actually rendered the final video out. In other words, play it in the edit list. And like I said, it's not that big of an issue, because I can use my imagination of what it looks like, and I'll usually go in and look at the video after it's rendered. And when the video is rendering, you can see even then that the progress bar is moving a little bit slower, just because it's doing a lot of work crunching all that video. So as long as it comes out good on the final product, that's all that really matters. But the advantage of being able to look at it before you render the video is that if you see that there's a problem, you can maybe fix it. But since I'm having such a big deal with getting the memory to work, or getting the new video board to work. I just decided to go without that, and I returned that back to Amazon today. I don't really do a whole lot with Amazon, so this was my first time of ever having to return something to them. I gotta admit, their process is pretty simple for that. Basically, you just go onto their website, say I need to return something. It gives you a list of all the stuff you've bought in the recent. You click on the item you want. You give a brief description of what the problem is and what you want to do with it, and they say, okay, just bring it to the UPS store at this location, and we'll return it to you for free. And I did that, and within 10 minutes or so of me getting home, I'd already been refunded. The money already appeared in my account. So the second UPS takes custody of it and acknowledges that they have it, boom, I had my money. So pretty easy to do. So I hope you actually found that a little bit entertaining, hearing about what's going on in my world, and maybe a little different scenery in the background. Anyway, it was really nice to kind of be out today. It is a little cold, but I got a jacket on and I'm doing really well. So anyway, I think that is all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching. If you have an answer to that question of mine, put it in the comments section below. And that's all we have for today. Thank you so much. See you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.